At 65, the man everyone ignored walked into a retirement office and quietly signed a few papers. The number on the screen stunned the employee helping him. This was a janitor who had spent decades mopping floors, emptying trash cans, and earning an ordinary paycheck. Yet somehow, he had built a fortune larger than many doctors, managers, and business owners. The question is not how he got rich. The real question is why so many people around him never did. His name was Ronald Read. If you passed him on the street, you would never have looked twice. He lived in a small town in Vermont. He drove used cars. His jackets looked old. He rarely spent money on anything flashy. People assumed they knew his story before hearing it. Working class job, modest income, ordinary life, end of story. But there was something nobody could see. Every morning, Ronald woke up before sunrise. For years, he worked as a gas station attendant. Later, he became a janitor. Nothing about those jobs suggested wealth. Nothing about his lifestyle suggested hidden success. Meanwhile, the people around him chased visible signs of progress. New cars appeared in driveways. Bigger televisions filled living rooms. Credit cards paid for vacations that paychecks could not. At first, Ronald seemed to be falling behind, and that is where the mystery begins. How could someone with one of the least glamorous careers end up so far ahead? The answer did not start with investing. It started with a habit almost nobody notices. In the 1950s and 1960s, America was changing fast. New products were everywhere. Advertising promised better lives. Spend now. Upgrade now. Enjoy now. Ronald watched it happen. He watched coworkers celebrate raises by increasing their spending. He watched neighbors buy things they could barely afford. He watched people treat every extra dollar like a reward that needed to be used immediately. Most never thought twice about it. Why would they? The future felt distant. Retirement belonged to older people. Wealth belonged to someone else. Ronald saw the same temptations. He was not immune. He liked nice things. He enjoyed comfort. He understood the excitement of buying something new, but he noticed something strange. Every time someone got a raise, they seemed just as stressed a year later. Their income changed. Their lives barely did. That observation stayed with him. Years passed. Then another twist appeared. Some of the smartest people Ronald knew struggled financially. They earned more than him. They had better titles. They looked successful. Yet many were constantly short on money. That made no sense. If intelligence alone created wealth, why were they stuck? If income alone created wealth, why were they worried? Ronald became fascinated by a simple idea. Maybe money was not mainly about earning. Maybe it was about behavior. That thought quietly changed everything. Instead of asking how much he could spend, he started asking where each dollar could go. Most people saw money as something that left. Ronald began seeing it as something that could stay, not in a savings account, somewhere else. But where? The answer arrived through the stock market. Back then, investing was not a trendy topic. There were no finance influencers, no investing apps, no endless streams of content explaining every market move. Buying stocks required effort. Most people ignored it. Ronald did the opposite. He spent time reading company reports. He studied businesses. He paid attention to companies selling products people used every day. Then he started buying shares. Not huge amounts, small amounts. Again and again. Month after month. Year after year. The amounts seemed insignificant. That is what made the next part so dangerous to miss. Nothing exciting happened. No overnight success. No dramatic breakthrough. No sudden riches. For long stretches, it looked like nothing was working. And that is exactly when most people quit. The biggest turning point in Ronald's story was not a stock pick. It was patience. When markets fell, he did not panic. When headlines predicted disaster, he kept going. When other people searched for shortcuts, he stayed with the same approach. This sounds simple. It is not. Because patience becomes hardest right before it starts paying off. In the 1970s, markets struggled. In the 1980s, fear returned more than once. Later came crashes, recessions, and uncertainty. Every period created a new reason to stop. Every period convinced someone that investing no longer worked. Ronald kept buying. One share became several. Several became dozens. Dozens became hundreds. Then something almost invisible started happening. The money he invested began earning money. Then those earnings started earning money too. The process repeated itself year after year. At first, the growth was tiny. Then it became noticeable. Then it became impossible to ignore. While others focused on paychecks, Ronald quietly built an army of dollars working on his behalf. Most people never saw it happening because compounding hides its power for a very long time. Then it reveals everything at once. Decades passed. Ronald never became famous. He never launched a startup. He never invented anything revolutionary. He never earned a celebrity income. Yet when the numbers were finally added together, the result shocked almost everyone. His investment portfolio grew to roughly $8 million. $8 million. From a man whose career included cleaning buildings. The surprise became even bigger after his death in 2015. People discovered he had donated most of his fortune to local organizations, including a hospital and library. The janitor many people overlooked had become one of the most generous people in town. And suddenly, the story spread around the world. News outlets focused on the shocking ending. But the ending was not the most important part. The important part was what happened while nobody was paying attention. For decades, Ronald looked ordinary. That is why people missed the real story. Wealth was growing in silence. If you are in your 20s or 30s, Ronald's story exposes a pattern that traps countless people. Most people think being broke comes from a lack of opportunity. Sometimes it does, but often the bigger problem is invisible. Money arrives and immediately gets assigned to lifestyle upgrades, a better phone, a more expensive car, monthly payments that quietly consume future choices. Then years pass. Income rises. Freedom does not. Ronald followed a different path. He treated ownership differently than consumption. Instead of constantly buying things produced by companies, he bought pieces of the companies themselves. That shift sounds small. In reality, it changes the entire game. Another takeaway is that wealth rarely looks impressive while it is being built. Debt often looks rich. Wealth often looks boring. That is why so many people chase appearances and miss progress. Here is another detail that rarely gets mentioned. Most people assume wealth builders spend every day thinking about money. Ronald often looked like he was doing nothing special. He went to work, came home, read, and repeated the routine. That made his progress invisible. Friends could not measure it. Neighbors could not photograph it. Social media did not exist to display it. Yet beneath the surface, ownership kept expanding. Dividend checks arrived, more shares were purchased, more dividends followed. The cycle looked boring, but boring was exactly what made it powerful. Excitement tempted others into constant changes. Consistency allowed his wealth compounding. The reason this story matters is not because a janitor retired rich. It matters because Ronald Read was painfully ordinary. He did not have secret information. He did not have a perfect career. He did not have extraordinary advantages. What he had was a willingness to ignore the crowd long enough for time to work in his favor. The final lesson is simple. The gap between broke and wealthy is often not created by one dramatic decision. It is created by hundreds of quiet decisions nobody applauds. The world notices the $8 million at the end. Almost nobody notices the decades of patience that created it. And that may be the most valuable part of the entire story.